comes a time when we figure out we don't have all the answers, where the existence of one person changes the experience of another. Totally individual, yet deeply intertwined. We are all searching, aren't we? Searching amidst the chaos and the beauty. For our meaning. For our identity. We're searching for where we belong.
My name is Taya. My life's lens was shaped by the Colorado big sky and the fields of the farm I grew up on. When my dad brought out our old camera, I wanted to be the one behind it, capturing moments. I first learned to appreciate stories at family gatherings and around campfires. When the time came for me to spread my wings and leave my tiny town, I attended a film program and traveled to over 17 countries, my travels fueling my continued love for capturing moments. Today, I'm still following that love.
I'm Sadie.
Hey, Sadie. Sadie.
I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, where I played sports, adventured to the mountains, and where my love for storytelling through photos and videos grew. After attending film school, starting my photography business, and traveling to many states and over 25 countries, I had fallen in love with hearing stories, learning new cultures, and meeting new people. I have always loved the power of a story.
We became friends years ago on top of a mountain. We bonded over our mutual love for film and our passion for people and storytelling.
We decided to create our own production company and set out on a journey to tell people's stories. As filmmakers, it was our job to help people share their story vulnerably without learning it ourselves.
Yeah. I don't like to talk about myself, so...
What am I supposed to say? What am I talking about?
Little did we know the ways we would be challenged.
It's actually really sad.
But wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start from the beginning.
Sadie, what did we just do?
We just purchased a domain name.
Oh!
We decided to have our first project be a documentary about marriage.
inadvertently, you're affected by all the marriages in your life. There was so much divorce and so much pain.
What if we just kind of started talking about it and like heard realistic expectations of what marriages could be? Like maybe it doesn't have to be this fairy tale or this doomsday thing.
Let's just go ask people questions and hear their stories, and we'll take it one step at a time, and it's been different.
We interviewed people we knew, people we randomly crossed paths with, authors, bloggers, psychologists, and those who inspired us in our own lives.
We had no idea what was in store for the next 5 years, but we took it one step at a time. This is the story of our journey.
You first.
My name is Jeremy Cowart, and it's my lovely wife Shannon, and we've been together this month at 20 years. Ran into her at an intramural football game.
And there's just this one lone figure walking this way as I'm walking this way, and it was Jeremy.
So we hit it off that night.
And just kind of ended up talking through the entire game, not really paying attention.
Saw her throw a spiral football, and that was quite impressive.
I threw a spiral, and I didn't know it, but he fell in love.
We are Kelly and Kelly. Right?
How do you do this? I'm a clinical psychologist.
Okay, and I'm a clinical psychologist as well. And I said, I met this really awesome guy, but unfortunately we won't be able to date because his name is Kelly.
First and only interaction in college was on an elevator.
I was hanging up posters for our next meeting, and the elevator opened, and Ricardo walked in, and he said, "You go to FCA?" And I said, "Yes." And then he went up one floor, the elevator opened again, and he walked out. So that was our first conversation.
So we'd been filming a couple interviews. It was starting to kind of conflict with some of the other personal work we had, because we both had our own businesses, and
So we lived in different states, so it was a little bit challenging to dive full force into a film that's fully funded by ourselves.
Is this realistic?
If we want to do this, we need to commit to it, or we just need to stop. There was an opportunity to do a grant, so we were like, okay, if we get this grant, we're going for it.
If we don't get the grant, we'll kind of put the project on the side until maybe it will come to life again later on when we're not so busy. So in 2016, we went to New Zealand and Australia to visit some friends.
It was a really rough year for both of us in very different ways.
I think we're both a little tired, we're both a little stressed, a little heavy.
We're boarding right now.
We're boarding right now. The day we left, we got word that we got the grant. We're doing this, because that was like our green light.
So that was kind of like fuel to the fire.
How do you take a subject such as marriage and make a documentary about it? Why do some marriages fail and other ones succeed?
My name's Jesse.
I'm Lizzie.
We're married.
And so for me, I just thought, yeah, I get married, have my kids, have my house, done, and I get married and it's different to it's not that. And it's a vulnerable boiling pot of emotion and experience and situations. And I think it's better than what I expected in that it's real life, but it's different. It's not the my husband buys me roses once a week and I always look beautiful when I wake up in the morning and we just stick together on everything, because we don't. And but it turns out that that's the beauty, if that makes any sense.
You have a wedding, you sign a piece of paper and you're married, and then you come home and you're expecting everything to be completely different, but it's actually exactly the same. Your issues you had before will still be there.
We were excited as we headed back to the States to continue talking to people about their stories.
Things were falling into place and what could happen next, and this was gonna, again, I thought, this documentary is gonna change the world.
So we're high school sweethearts. We met our sophomore year, and I hated him.
Came up with this really brilliant plan to have a child so that our parents would have to let us get married.
Yeah, we were really smart.
And
so yeah, we ended up
I ended up pregnant this summer before our senior year, and so we ended up getting married.
We were really excited. We love each other. Like, I can totally support us. And I was making like $12 an hour at the grocery store. Like, life is going to be awesome. And all you need is love, right? I mean, we can make this thing work.
She's strong.
I think we're experiencing an understandable backlash against marriage. In the 1970s is when we saw divorce rates skyrocket, right? So we have a generation of people contemplating marriage who have watched a generation of people really struggle with marriage. It clearly hasn't made many people happier. It clearly hasn't improved the lives of many people. In fact, it's made it worse for many people. So I think what we're in the midst of is sort of a reconceptualization. If we're going to value marriage, what do we value it for? Do we value it because it simplifies our life, that it makes us happier? Probably not. Those things aren't necessarily true of marriage. And so I hope what we're coming to is an understanding of marriage, that marriage is a way of being formed into people who are more authentic, who are more vulnerable, who are more compassionate and caring, more selfless. And that if it's not that, it may not be worth the effort.
And I think a lot of people are quite confused in a certain extent when life suddenly doesn't kind of automatically solve itself as soon as you walk down the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I don't think marriage is the be-all and end-all. I just think it's a pathway of success, as well as many others that are out there. It can become the only focus. And that's a problem, because for a lot of people, they won't get married, and that is, I think, fantastic.
One of the things that I see of expectations that people get in the marriage is like, just somehow whatever problems they had before are going to end because they're getting married. It's like, if anything, they're magnified. Oh no, now when I have a kid, that'd be it. Oh my gosh, extremely magnified.
I think a lot of it is thinking that another person exists to make you happy, because I think that's what a lot of our culture says, is like this: you get married to make yourself happy. You get married to, you know, to feel fulfilled. You get married to, which you definitely, you know, it does fulfill a void for sure, like that friendship, and that's not a bad thing, like that's beautiful. But I think believing that another person exists to make you happy is perhaps the downfall of a lot of marriages in our culture, because that person was never meant to, you know, hold that weight.
Just from my own relationships, I'm like, oh, everyone else goes through this, right? And no one had really talked to me about, yeah, we struggled with the fact that like I was creating this story and this is what was my insecurities and these were my wounds and we had to heal these wounds, and but you did that in marriage, and just hearing that like marriage is a place where you can kind of have your wounds healed.
I think this key to marriage is a state of forgiveness. And the reason that you're in forgiveness is because you have all these expectations, and the other person could never live up to all that. And so you just keep forgiving and forgiving, forgive yourself, forgive them, then you get to see who they are.
But here's the important part. Don't forget the childlike version. Sweet Maria actually has a picture of me when I was 8 years old. And when I do something really lame, which is really often, she'll get that photograph of me out when I'm 8, and she's like, oh, this is just Bob being insecure again. Like, the reason that I've done something wonky, and the people that you love, the reason that they do 3/4 of the stupid stuff they do is they're just insecure and they don't know how to do it. And so sometimes what we do is we reach for the stupid shelf because it's really wide and it's full of all kinds of stuff. So if we can just be a little bit kinder, just knowing that we're all amateurs when it comes to love and grace and relationships, but to get better.
Some of the darkest years of our lives, I think we were really unprepared. Our fights and our conversations about things would just turn very let me attack you and let me defend myself. It wasn't like, hey, we're having an issue, let's sit down and solve this. It was, I'm going to come in here swinging because I know that I know that it's going to get messy and I got to get my swings in first.
Sitting there with each other going, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And really feeling and having both of us feel like we were done.
One day I asked myself, why? Why are we ending this? I know the feeling of why, but why specifically? Let's just take like a week or two each and just write down a list. It really had to simply come down to the fact that we had stopped trusting each other and we had lost respect for each other.
Women are so deep and so emotionally connected with so many different levels that a man isn't. Like, I'm so connected with like my work, my performance, like what really matters to me is producing and taking care of this and being able to bring in the food and performing. And when I was doing that in our marriage, and Addie still had needs that was like, what? I'm not meeting the greatest need of your heart? Then it really challenged me to really be able to listen to her needs. For relationship, for communication, for intimacy, for, to be able to talk. Like, for me, I didn't talk very much. I was pretty silent when I got married, and was a good worker and a good, producer, whatever. And yet I didn't know how to communicate really well with Addie. Like, really listen to her heart and what's going on in her innermost being, that where her need was for connection. And so that was really hard for me for a long time, because it was like, I was so frustrated that look, I'm providing all that you need physically, We have wonderful kids, wonderful family, we're blessed with all this, and yet there's still a need in her for knowing that she's cared for.
When she feels like she can't talk to me about something she wants on one issue, that translates into a lot of other issues. Like, well, I don't trust you. I don't trust you with my feelings, my wants, my desires, because you don't care, or you don't care to solve it. I know inside that I can't go to school right now, and we've had this conversation a million times, but the issue is you don't care. The issue is I can't trust you with what I want. And so we looked at each other, and I'll never forget, Ellen says, so how do we fix this? I mean, do we fix this? What do we do? And I said, well, I guess we do the exact same thing that got us here, only in reverse. But we have to learn to trust each other again. We have to learn to respect and speak respectfully.
Because we all know I can say something and you just heard something different.
Before I understood vulnerability, I was just like so one-sided and like blinkered.
I just have to be aware of the stories that I'm creating in my head.
And I learned from him. I learned how to live and how to die, both.